A very good morning to all the viewers and the listeners. Today I'm going to talk about family and marriage. These are two very important institutions practically found in all societies. So in that sense, they are very universal. Uh, they have a very long history. I mean, there is not a society, human society, which didn't have either of these institutions or both of them. Family, let's start with family. I think family is a word that all of you are familiar with. Whenever you think of the word family, the first thing that comes to your mind is that there are parents, a mother and a father, and children. You know, so this is the basic unit of a family. When we talk about types of families, when we talk about this basic unit of the parents and the children, we think of a nuclear family. But we'll talk more about the types of family. The family is an institution which has, which can be best described as a group of people who are related to each other through marriage and through blood. So, for instance, the children are related to their parents through blood or by adoption. The husband and wife are related through marriage, right? Also, they can somewhat tenuously related through blood too if there is a particular kind of a marriage. So, marriage is one of those institutions which, in a way, prepares the ground for the formation of family. So a family is basically a consequence of marriage, and family therefore is a very primary group which has the following functions. Peter Murdoch, a sociologist, has identified mainly 4 functions. The first, of course, is a reproductive angle, which means it regulates, sanctions and controls the reproductive aspect of the human society. So there are rules about who you can cohabit with, sleep with, so to say. There are taboos, who you cannot with. So this is the most sanctioned way you can have a sexual relationship between sexes. Typically, when we talk about families in the traditional sense of the term, we often think of families in terms of heterosexual relationships. By heterosexual, I mean a man and woman relationship. But now, that term is being critiqued. It has come under a lot of a cloud, so to say, but we will talk about that at some point. Let's just start with the heterosexual relationships of a man and a woman. So that is the sanctioned sexual relationship that is often thought of. Now what family does is it also legitimizes the rights, the roles and responsibilities of parents as well as children. Now children who are born in a sanctioned family will have all the rights that are accorded to them, whatever these rights may be, depending on societies to societies and culture to culture. So rights such as inheritance, for instance, inheritance and property rights and so on and so forth, or even claims on children, all part of, or claims on property, even if couples divorce, those kind of things are all related to a sanctioned way of doing. So the family as institution has a varied functions, which then sanction some of these rights, responsibilities and inheritance, so on and so forth. The economic angle is a very big part of the family's function. By economic activities, we mean that you collate your money together, for instance, or you share properties. Some sociologists look at family as one of the first primary corporate groups because they're all members of an economic unit. Therefore, there is also a division of labor. In fact, one of the foremost divisions of labor is between, based typically on gender roles, but there is division of labor. So family is also a primary economic unit besides its reproductive angle. Family also has a huge function of raising the young. If you know, the very first time a child is born, he's practically introduced to this society. And that series of incorporation of the child to the society, what we in sociology call as socialization, is a big part of it. Socialization into the ways of the society where the child imbibes various norms and mores and ways of doing things that the particular family is located, the society that the family is located in, are all part of the functions of the family. So socialization is a big part of it. Some sociologists have used the word educational. Education also means socialization, but it has more expansive connotations when we say socialization. Socialization would include not only just the typical ways of doing, but it could also introduce a child to a range of things. It could be skill sets. You would find that in very traditional families, a child would start, let's say for example, a craft person a child would start apprenticing with a father or mother and learn the craft of a particular family tradition, for instance, or any other. So family functions also as a huge institution for the imparting of knowledge, skills and socialization. Another very important function of the family is the emotional support bonds that it creates. In fact, whenever we talk of family in a very emotive sense, we only think of the bonds. I mean, look at all the movies that come about, family relationships, in fact, hover around these emotional bonds. And, the classic example of it often, which comes across as an iconoclastic image family bond, is the mother and the child bond. So these bonds are, some would say, lifelong, because from the time the child is born into a family to the time that he dies, almost, the family bonds are sometimes sustained, sometimes broken, but as an institutional frame or an institutional setup, family does maintain these bonds. And there are various varieties of ways in which it does, like it creates a series of rituals and practices around honing these bonds. We can only think of there are a lot of rituals, but a classic one would be a child's birthday party where there is a lot of ways in which such bonds are created, cultivated and expressed. So these are some of the primary ones. Now, as societies keep changing, the institution of family is also going through some changes, though the basic elements, aspects of the family more or less remain, but some of these things keep changing. For instance, in the West, family is seen as more of a conjugal relationship, meaning it's a relationship which is based on love, conjugality between the partners, whatever be the partners. They could be also same-sex partners, because but we will come to that kind of marriage a little later. So it is a relationship between partners. So a lot of families disintegrate when those emotional ties or aspects related to love and partnership and conjugality, companionship, so on and so forth, break. So marriage, even without marriage, some of the families which are based on these kind of things are under some sort of a crisis these days, because the original functions which it is intended to be is now losing its significance, or has lost some of its importance. So family as a result has also going through some basic changes, not massively, but definitely so. For instance, a lot of people who have used to, in India, one of the debates which went on for a long time is the nature of family and how it has changed. One aspect which has been highlighted over several decades of work on scholarship on family is whether the Indian family is becoming more nuclear, you know. So, which takes us to another aspect of family, which is what are the types of families, you know. So, a classic example I gave you is the basic unit of a family, which is the parents and the children, which is called a nuclear family. Now, there are also extended families, which means that you could include family, other members of the kin. It could be, let's say, the mother's parents or the father's parents, or a set of cousins or two brothers who are living together with their families. So there are extended families. Now, in many traditional societies, which are patriarchal in nature, by patriarchy we mean where the line of authority or domination of the male, in patriarchal society or in patrilineal societies where the lineage is traced through the father's side, you would find that extended families typically concentrated with the father's side of the family or the male side of the family. So it could be that a man who gets married will get a bride home to his father's house, and they live under the domination and the protection of the father, who might be an elderly man. So you have two generations of people living there. It could also be that there are two brothers who are also living with the parents, who continue to wield their authority. So this used to be a setup in many agrarian societies, who used to have a family holding of land and used to cultivate the land together. But with migration, things started to change quite a lot in India, particularly because families started to move to cities, and then there were more nuclear setup of families. Nuclear families are typically associated with post-industrial societies where migration started to happen, and then people started moving to cities into small and breaking up into small units. While this is true, more recent studies, including in the context of globalization, have revealed that while nuclear families seem to be the order of the day, to a large extent, they are actually quite fluid. Fluid in the sense that even though they may not be a permanent setup of two generations of people or two horizontal set of people with one set of generation, let's say like two brothers living with their parents, may not be obtainable as in the more recent times, especially in this context of cities. It is found that these are not necessarily true, because in many nuclear families you'd find that the parents are visiting them for an extended period of time, or that there are a set of cousins or relatives who come to obtain or access various facilities and opportunities that are available in the cities. And so in that sense, families become these stopgap arrangements till such time they find their own maybe partners or family units or houses. So this is so true of including mass migration or large scale migration that is happening across the globe. So Indians who go abroad, for instance, would find that they are literally the gateways when families come from their native countries or homes or wherever, or villages, and then a lot of including many distant cousins and so on, take care of the initial years when the family moves abroad. So I think this needs to be taken into consideration when we talk about family structures um, or even functions, because family functions have also expanded over the globe through the virtual world. So even if the parents are not living literally with the family, say elderly parents, they're always there for advice, good counsel, and so on and so forth, or even just passing on recipes. You'll find that many families are in constant touch with their elders, or children are in touch with their grandparents. So the virtual world has also created its own interactions. So the actual interactions within family and the dynamics therefore would create a very complex picture of the family. So we have to keep these in consideration when we talk about family as an institution, as a structure, and so on and so forth. But that's not the only complexity we have. Very quickly, to touch upon certain aspects, I will talk about family in the more contemporary situations. As I mentioned, families, heterosexual families seems to be the most prominent family systems across the globe. But in the recent week, all of you must have heard of the institution. The family has also is being critiqued for not its heteronormativity, which is basically that we often think of families only in terms of the heterosexual marriages, which result in families which are again heterosexual. Now, in some countries, same-sex marriage has been legalized, which means that partners who would like to make their relationship more societally sanctioned, or also to kind of give it gravity and a sort of sanctity, have opted for this form where they have got married but they also have children. So you have a lot of TV series which have captured this element, and they're quite amusing and quite insightful. In fact, I would say, if you've seen this TV series called The Modern Family, which is talks about not only the same-sex marriages but also marriages where you have step siblings, because somebody has got married the second time and they come with their children. So those relationship dynamics are also interesting. But not only that, now we have another interesting element that has crept into the family structure and the dynamics that follow, and that is the introduction or the intervention of reproductive technologies. By reproductive technologies, I mean those technologies, medical technologies, which intervene, which make possible for one to have children which are not, for whatever reasons, are not possible naturally. So you could have surrogate children, which means that a woman has decided to literally borrow someone else's womb for the period of gestation of the child, and then adopts that child as her own. There are very many details you can read about it, but the surrogacy and various other reproductive technologies, whether through IVF, through donor eggs, or through sperm, which also questions this whole notion of biology of the parent. You could have two mothers. You could have a stepmother, you could have a surrogate mother, you could have an adopted mother. Again, I don't know whether you've seen this movie which came out of Hollywood, which became very famous, The Lion, which was about this child who was adopted in Australia, and then he goes in search of his biological mother. So these kind of narratives are now becoming very common, which also puts us into questions which also raises a lot of questions. What are emotional bonds between people? Are they biological? Are they social? Are they can they be sustained socially? Or is blood thicker than sociality or the sociability of family? So these are some of the questions. But apart from this, there are cultural aspects which also questions a certain normative framework in which we look at family. For instance, my experience has been that the African Americans in the US particularly, I mean, we are talking about African, whenever we talk about African Americans, we talk largely in the context of America, who've had been under subjugation. I mean, they were slaves for almost over 200 years. So in that period, the unit of family was not quite tenable. You know, people were separated. A child born to a woman who was a slave woman was then separated, was sold off. So the family did not develop as a unit. And I'm talking about this because recently there's been a lot of discussion about the death of an African American under the police, and then, you know, so it is important to know, I think, how Black America has evolved. So the unit of family didn't quite evolve, and so there's been a lot of subsequently there's been an anthropological work to understand what happens to the Black families, and they've realized that they have found that they have created their own extended kin through friendships and so on and so forth. And I'm just going to giving you only a minute introduction to this aspect, only for you to understand that family structures, as much as they are so fundamentally critical to every societies, are not found exactly in the same way in every society. And sometimes circumstances, societal processes and structures also create their own family structures. Some are created deliberately. For instance, in the Israeli society, kibbutz are formed. Kibbutz are like a community family units. In fact, the family as we know traditionally, where there are parents and their children cohabiting together, is not found at all. The children, in fact, live in separate quarters. The families visit them, and everything is done at a communal level. So there are those. In fact, some families are different from, as I mentioned, that it is always tied up to some extent. Family units are also related to marriage, which the whole aspect of marriage we will not go into detail today. But where there are marriages which are, so let's say polygamous, which is a man who has several wives, or polyandrous, whereas there is a woman who has several husbands. So the family units also kind of expand in the context of these kind of marriages. As I already mentioned, patrilineity and patriarchy, we mentioned about how families can extend in terms of whether they're local, which means the residence is happening with the husband's family, or matrilocal, where the residence is happening at the mother's side. See, for instance, the Khasis, a tribe from Meghalaya, are matrilineal families where the husband will stay with the wife's side of the family. This is also true with the Nayars in Kerala, where there are matrilineal families. They used to, the children will stay with the mother. The husband often would be visiting her, but not really staying. So these are just the basic introductions to family. As a concluding remark, what I would like to talk about is, we talked about the emotions that are created and nurtured through family institutions, and it would be very exciting for you to look at these emotions sociologically and not necessarily from the point of view of that family is a unit that is so natural, that is so defined by blood and kinship, that it is that the emotions are extremely natural. So these variations would really help us to understand that families can also be nurtured, that families can be cultivated, that families can be found in varieties of forms, and that families can also change over a period of time through depending on what kind of circumstances that we go through, what are the huge processes that societies are going through, so on and so forth. This is our very introductory discussion today on family, largely from a sociological point of view. That's all for now. Thank you.